Well, thank you and good morning. I think as I look at this lovely group of people, I might be the geek in front of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a PBM is, because it's not well known. A pharmacy benefit manager. It's a third-party administrator who acts on behalf of a health plan. They're the ones who determine that drug formulary that you see when you come here. What's approved and at what cost. They process and pay pharmacy claims. They do audits, really elongated, sometimes abusive audits. And they establish pharmacy network. So they determine whether or not this pharmacy and any other participates in your health plan. Many states started reining in the role of PBMs years ago. Michiganders have literally been paying the price, and that stops now. This bill is one of the most assertive in the nation, and it takes great strides in protecting Michiganders. Times are tough in Michigan, as Representative Whitmer mentioned. We don't want people to have to decide between life-saving medication and a mortgage payment, or their utility bill, or their food bill. And so this reins in a number of nefarious ways that PBMs have started to create revenue, including clawbacks. I like to mention this one because it's the easiest to understand. Clawbacks happen when you walk into your pharmacy. Let's say your drug copay is $30. You hand your pharmacist $30, you walk out with your medication. By contract, your pharmacist is not allowed to tell you the cost of that medication was actually $15. Now, the pharmacist doesn't keep the additional $15. They have to return it to the PBM. So in that instance, we have a third-party administrator literally reaching into the wallets of Michiganders and taking money out. And we're stopping that now. In 2017, 32% of Michigan residents stopped taking medication as prescribed according to the cost. Think of what we could save if people could take their medication as prescribed. Less emergency room visits, less hospital stays, overall health care savings. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we wouldn't be here today celebrating this if it was not for Speaker of the House Jason Wentworth, who prioritized quality, access, and affordability of health care early last year. Likewise, I see the Chairman of Health Policy, Kurt Vanderwall, who put a number of hours into this, if not days or weeks, and Senator Brinks, who also was very important in vetting this legislation. Thank you to Meyer. Thank you to all the pharmacies who stepped up and they were willing to share their challenges. The ultimate goal of this bill is to keep the pharmacy doors open and the wallets of Michiganders closed. I now introduce Nancy Courtney, a retired nurse.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Courtney. I'm a registered nurse and a senior. I've worked and served in Metro Detroit community for over 60 years. And I personally see the impact of prescription drugs as I volunteer at the Detroit Area on Aging and St. Francis Cabrini Clinic in Corktown, Detroit. I'm a Medicare recipient. I pay for supplemental health insurance in addition to Medicare, but I live on a fixed income. Any reduction in the cost of my prescriptions is welcomed. And the communities I serve through my volunteer work include many older adults like me who also welcome the reduction in prescription drug cost. Thank you, Governor Whitmer and the legislators and Meyer who work to lower the cost for Michiganders. And I want to now introduce the governor.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Representative Callie, Representative Whitmer. Thank you, Rick, for all the incredible work that you have done to help the state of Michigan through the pandemic, through the return to work, through the Economic Recovery Council, through vaccinating people in Michigan. I just thank the whole team and John Kakmacki and the UFCW, the incredible men and women who show up every day to make sure that the shelves stay stocked so the rest of us could stay home when we really needed to. And so I am really pleased to be here with you, Rick, and your team, and all the legislative leaders on both sides of the aisle, both chambers of the legislature who've been so critical in getting us to this point. I'm proud to be here to sign the bipartisan bill that will lower the high cost of prescription drugs, and this is one more way that we are putting Michiganders first. My priority right now is growing our economy, creating good paying jobs, and lowering costs for people in our state. And this bill really is a testament to what is possible when we come together and focus on the issues that matter most to families. This bipartisan legislation will improve transparency and ensure that we've got fair drug pricing. We'll ensure Michiganders have access to all the information about the back-end cost and profit of their prescription medication, and this will help lower inflated prices. This legislation will make a difference in real people's lives right now. There are Michiganders whose prescription medication costs are in the tens of thousands of dollars a year. So many have to choose between getting their critical medication or putting food on the table, as Representative Callie mentioned. And right now, people often shop around, taking them hours and spending miles on the road to find the best price. Some people travel across the border to Canada to get their prescription drugs. And some cry when they refill their medication knowing that the prescription drugs are saving their life, but the cost is killing them. This will further effective oversight and enforceability by requiring pharmacy benefit managers to acquire a license from the state of Michigan as well. So these policies were recommended by the Bipartisan Prescription Task Force that we set up in early 2020. Yes, early 2020, we were doing some things before the whole world turned upside down, but this work continued. And today, I am grateful to everyone who served on that task force, including members of my cabinet, Senators Brinks and Vanderwall, both of whom are here, Representatives Koupa, Valpel, Whitwer, Callie, and Eller. I'm so grateful that you are, the work that you did to get us to this point. The task force did some really incredible work over the course of a year, and I look forward to enacting some of their other recommendations too. I think it's really important that we hold people and corporations who profit from skyrocketing prices accountable, and that we continue to work together to lower costs on prescription drugs. We still have work to do in this space, no question, and I'll keep working across the aisle to make sure that we are successful on all those fronts. Today's bill is part of our ongoing effort to cut costs and put more money back in people's pockets. We know that our Attorney General, Dana Nessels, launched an investigation under the Michigan Consumer Protection Act into one of the largest manufacturers of insulin in the country that has continued to increase prices and reap billions in profits. There are efforts in the legislature underway, bipartisan efforts to cap the cost of insulin at $50 a month. I think that we should get that piece done too. And soon, we know drivers will be receiving their $400 refund checks per vehicle. This is another way that we can get more money in the pockets of Michiganders. The budget proposal that I introduced a couple weeks ago expands on that. I proposed repealing the retirement tax, putting $1,000 in people's pockets, 500,000 households, tripling the earned income tax credit to helping more than 750,000 families in Michigan, putting $3,000 in their pockets, and a $2,500 state electric vehicle rebate. These are some ways that state government can take action to help people get ahead, especially when inflation is creating so much pressure. Days like today are a reminder that Michigan is really on the move. Our economy is growing fast. We had the best recovery in our history since the pandemic began 2 years ago. And we're the #1 based on equally weighted measures of employment, personal income, home prices, stock market performance, et cetera, of publicly traded companies. That's good news. The thing is, not every individual is feeling it yet. Today's action will go toward making sure that every Michigander feels the benefit of a lot of the positive economic indicators that we are benefiting from collectively. So I'm excited to sign this bipartisan bill. It is a wonderful proof point that we are up to the challenges that we are confronting, and when we work together, we can make a meaningful improvement in the quality of people's lives in the state. And that's what should center all of our work in Lansing. So thank you. I am excited to sign this bill. Before we do that, I think we're going to open it up for a few questions from the press.
Yep, at this time, we'll open up for questions from the press.
Yeah.
Hello, Governor. Sarah McCarthy. Obviously, transparency is a big part of this reform. Can you talk about how
So, I'm signing the bill. I think that all of the mechanisms that we have to create in preparation for this are happening. I can follow up with you and give you a little more specificity, but we're excited about this. We're prepared to ensure that the true benefit of this bill is realized by people, and with more, we can do a follow-up.
No, thank you. And what more needs to happen in order to bring integrity into our pharmaceutical industry in Michigan?
I think if you look at the work that the Prescription Drug Task Force did, that there are a number of actions that they have concluded would be beneficial to consumers in Michigan. I think that this is the first step. I'm hopeful of many, and I don't know if anyone from the task force wants to shed any additional light, but you're welcome to if you'd like to. They're staying put. Okay, yes.
Is an income tax rollback on the table? Are you willing to negotiate that to get to the point where you think it's set?
So, Tim, I introduced a budget a couple of weeks ago. I know you know that. And it is built around ensuring that we have some tax fairness for our senior citizens. First and foremost, we know that people who worked a lifetime, played by the rules, calculated when they could afford to retire, and then had the rules changed and the rug pulled out from underneath them, are living on fixed incomes. And with inflation and all of the additional pressures of the last tough 2 years, starting with giving our seniors a tax fairness, I think is an important first step. I've also proposed that we increase the earned income tax credit. I know that there is some bipartisan support in the legislature for that. I think that that is another really important, meaningful way that we can help working families help get their head above water. When we increase the earned income tax credit, it benefits 730,000 households in Michigan, 1 million children. Half the kids in Michigan are living in households that would benefit from the earned income tax credit increase. So working people who are paying their dues but are struggling to get ahead. This is how we help kids in Michigan and families in Michigan that are struggling.
Would you consider an income tax rollback?
Tim, I think as we talk about tax fairness, the first thing to do is alleviate the shift that was put onto our senior citizens and working families, and that's what I've proposed.
Any other questions on lowering the cost of prescription drugs?
Seriously, can you answer the question? Are you willing to negotiate an income tax rollback?
Tim, you and I have had very similar conversations over the years. I'm not going to negotiate with you. I'm going to negotiate with the legislature when they're ready to do that. Of course, we've got to get a budget done. We have to make sure that it balances. We have to ensure that one-time dollars are not spent on ongoing needs, and that when we can sustain and balance the budget and put some money into our rainy day fund. All of these things are crucial to our ability to make investments in our people and our schools and our infrastructure and our skills gap, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
Governor, what's been your reaction to Republicans saying they simply don't want to go back to what was in place in 2011? They'd rather do an across-the-board tax cut for retirees. Have you read this, and what's your response?
You know, in 2011, a decision was made to give a business tax break and to shift the burden onto senior citizens by taxing retirement, to shift the burden onto working families by cutting the earned income tax credit, to shift the burden onto schools. They cut schools to make the budget balance at that time. I thought it was unfair at the time. I have continued to do my part to try to give relief to those parts of our state that bore this burden. Now we have an opportunity to make it right, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
Are you willing to negotiate around what that looks like, or do you simply want to go back to what it was exactly?
Well, of course, I'm always, we got to get a budget done. We've got to, I think, make sure that we have tax fairness, and of course, I'm always willing to negotiate. But I want to make very clear that I believe the number one thing that we can do to help people in Michigan is give our retirees the tax break that they should never have had this shift happen in the first place. And I think that's the first stop. Second, and as equally important, but for the purposes of this conversation, I would say the earned income tax credit is an important, meaningful tax policy that's traditionally been bipartisan that gives people who are working, but working low-wage jobs, an opportunity to try to take a step forward. $3,000 to families that are at or near the poverty line is an incredible amount of money that they can spend to support their families, put food on the table, or buy a bike helmet for their children or Peeps for Easter. By the way, if you're not shopping after this press conference, I encourage you to do so.
Time for a non-question on prescription drugs. Governor, how are you planning to hold the companies in Michigan accountable to lower these drug costs?
Well, there's a mechanism in this legislation, and we have regulatory agencies that will have a role. And so I think, this is a moment where we have created an expectation, a standard, and codified it. And so now we'll be able to implement it.
So in your remarks earlier about $100 checks coming from the catastrophic claims fund, are you concerned that if the legislature rolls back some of the 2019 reforms on the fee schedule, that those checks could be in danger of not happening?
I believe that this was the expectation from the law that was signed, that people would get the relief. It has inured to benefit of a lot of drivers in Michigan. They've gotten lower costs when it comes to their insurance. We've got this ability to give a $400 rebate to every driver for every vehicle that they have. I think that we can still do some negotiation around addressing some of the shortcomings of the law, but that they are not mutually exclusive.
That's all the time we have for Q&A, and we'll transition to the bill.
All right, I'm going to sign the bills. Stacy, should I put my mask on? Okay. All right. Okay.